You absolute masterpieces of misdirection. Sitting there looking like you haven't just been quietly terrifying everyone who ever doubted you. Give yourselves a round of applause. Actually, don't. The sound of their jaws hitting the floor is applause enough. So, somebody's world just got flipped like a coin they didn't know was rigged, and it landed on the side they never bothered to check. You, my magnificent little riddle, have been walking around in broad daylight, right under their noses, and they had you filed away, stamped, labeled, shrink-wrapped in their neat little assumptions like a toy they thought they'd figured out. And then you did something, or something about you slipped out from behind the curtain, and suddenly every label they stuck on you started peeling off at the corners and curling into ash. You're not who they thought you were. Oh, you are so much more. And now they're standing there, eyes wide, mouths doing that little goldfish thing, trying to stitch together the person they assumed you were, with the person standing right here, right now, radiating something they can't quite put a name to, but absolutely cannot stop staring at. You know that feeling, yeah? When you've been underestimated so long you nearly started buying your own disguise. That moment when you've been the quiet one, the wallpaper, the one people scroll past until they need a favor. And then suddenly, you're the one every single eye in the room locks on to, because you just did something they never, ever, in their wildest fever dreams, thought you had in you. That's not a fluke. That's not the universe rolling dice. You know I don't buy that randomness routine. That's you. Finally letting who you really are leak through the cracks of the cage they tried to keep you in. Here's what went down. Somewhere along the way you figured out, maybe young, maybe later, that it was safer to be a ghost. If you kept your ammunition hidden, if you didn't let people get too good a look, if you parked yourself in the background like furniture, you wouldn't get hit, you wouldn't draw fire. You wouldn't have to carry the crushing weight of somebody else's expectations strapped to your back. And look, you're sharp. You built an entire life around that logic. You became the watcher, the one in the corner with their arms crossed, the one who listens more than they speak, who clocks more than they participate. And people got real comfortable with that version of you. They built their whole understanding of who you are around that quiet mask. They filled in every blank with their own tiny imaginations. And honestly, that worked for a while. It felt safe. Yeah, I know. It felt safe. It felt like cruise control. You could drift through the world without too much friction, without too many spotlights swinging your direction. But here's the dirty little secret about safety that nobody whispers in your ear. You can't pitch a tent there forever. Eventually, life kicks down the door. Something shows up that doesn't give a single damn about your comfort zone. Doesn't care that you spent years stacking bricks around yourself. It takes a wrecking ball to every wall you built, and suddenly, you've got no option except to show people exactly what you're made of. That's what's happening right now. You think you know? You have no idea. Don't read my book for comfort. Read it to snap. The Evolution of the Anomaly, the manual to your new self. Grab it from the description or pinned comment of this video. Now let's get back to why you're really here. Whatever you've been walking through, it's been heavy. The kind of heavy that would have pancaked most people. The kind of pressure that turns coal into diamonds or dust. No in between. And you've been carrying it. You've been marching straight through that inferno, And instead of turning to smoke, you're coming out the other side, looking like something hammered into shape on an anvil. Nobody thought you could survive. You're threading your way through pitch black that would have had anyone else sprinting for the exit, and you're doing it with this eerie, quiet power that's almost unsettling to watch. Think about what they saw before. They saw someone who kept to themselves, someone who maybe looked fragile, unsure, like they needed a chaperone through the hard parts. They saw the surface, the carefully edited trailer of you that you'd been screening for the world because it felt easier, safer. And they made their little judgments. They formed their little opinions. They decided who you were and, more importantly, what you were capable of. And then life got ugly, and they assumed you'd shatter. They assumed somebody would have to sweep you up off the floor. They assumed you'd be the first domino to fall. Beautiful twist, though. You didn't. And that's what's got them spinning like a compass next to a magnet. It's not just that you're handling it. It's that you're handling it with a wisdom, a maturity, a poise they had zero clue existed inside you. You're not just treading water. You're navigating. You're making moves that require a depth of vision they never once credited you with. You're reading angles they didn't know you could see. You're untangling knots in ways that look almost supernatural to them, because they didn't even realize you understood the maze you were walking through. There's this moment when you've been underestimated your whole life, and you finally do something that demolishes that perception. It's like you've been composing music in a frequency only dogs and gods could hear, and then you suddenly drop it into a key everyone recognizes, and the melody is devastatingly clear. You are not who they thought you were. You never were. What specifically is frying their circuits right now? It's the way you think. It's the way you metabolize reality. You've got this mind that runs on different rails. You see patterns and connections that fly right over everyone else's heads. You catch things other people miss, like they're standing in the rain and not noticing they're wet. You link ideas that look completely unrelated until you explain it, and then it's so obvious they feel silly for not seeing it first. And when you actually open your mouth, when you let people peek inside that spectacular engine between your ears, they're floored. They cannot figure out how you got there. They can't retrace your steps. It's like you're tuned into a broadcast they don't even have the antenna for. And this isn't new for you. You've been in conversations where you dropped a thought, and the person across from you just froze, stared at you like you'd sprouted wings. Not because you were wrong, because you were so right, so blindsidingly accurate about something they'd never even considered, that their whole mental architecture had to crack and rebuild itself just to fit what you said inside it. And the thing is, this was always in you, always. You've always been this perceptive, this intuitive, this razor sharp, this quick. You just weren't advertising it. You kept it buried under layers of self-doubt, under the fear of being seen, under this belief that it was smarter to stay small. But lately something cracked open. Maybe it was the adversity. Maybe it was a situation that grabbed you by the collar and said, "Step up or step out." Whatever it was, the seal broke. The vault swung wide. And now all that power, all that insight you'd been hoarding, it's loose. It's in the air and people are breathing it in whether they want to or not. But look closer at the architecture of the trap. They didn't just coordinate a manipulation script to break your spirit. They ran a systematic financial ambush to trap you in modern-day slavery, so you could never afford to buy your freedom. They wanted you bone-deep, exhausted, working for crumbs while they surveilled your timeline. Why? Because a broke anomaly is an exposed anomaly. True sovereignty is impossible if your bank account forces you to beg a parasite for a survival check. You do not need a louder voice. You need an untargetable wealth shield built in total obscurity to fund your permanent absence. But we will address the rules of moving like water next month. For today, focus on your internal frame. You know what else is short-circuiting them? The emotional intelligence you're flexing. You're not just clever in some dusty textbook way. You're clever about feelings, about people. You've got this ability to read human nature that makes people feel like you've got X-ray vision pointed straight at their souls. You can decode a room in ways that make people squirm because you know what they're feeling before they've even admitted it to the mirror. And that is deeply unsettling to people who hit you pegged as just quiet, just clueless, just background noise. Think about this. Think about the last time someone was drowning in something difficult and you knew exactly what to say. You didn't rehearse it. It just came out, perfectly timed, perfectly aimed, and the person you were talking to got this look on their face. How did you know? How could you possibly know that was exactly what I needed to hear? And you couldn't explain it. It wasn't something you pulled from a textbook or a podcast. It was something you felt in your marrow, something you intuited, something you knew. Because you've walked your own version of that dark hallway, and you came out the other end with a bone-deep understanding of what people actually need when they're drowning. That's another thing they're clocking now. You've been through things that would have snapped other people clean in half. Real darkness, real struggle, the kind of pain that leaves scars they can't see on the surface. And you came through it. Not bitter, not hollowed out, not cynical. You came through it carrying a kind of wisdom that only gets forged in the furnace of actual experience. You know things about survival that people with smooth, easy roads simply cannot fathom. And when you share that wisdom, when you let people see that layer of you, it's like you're handing them a flashlight in a room they didn't even know was dark. They never expected you to be the one with the answers. They never expected you to be the person people gravitate toward when they need direction. They never expected you to lead. You were supposed to be the follower, the scenery, the one without opinions or a compass. And now, you stunning enigma, you're the one people are hunting down. You're the one they want to hear from, because when you speak, there's gravity behind it. There's authority. There's something that makes people shut up and lean in. How does that feel? To be perceived so differently than before? To be recognized not as the timid, uncertain soul they assumed, but as the wise, capable, formidable force you've been all along, underneath the camouflage. It's a bit dizzying, isn't it? Because part of you is still that person who wanted to vanish. Part of you still flinches at being watched. And now here you are, being watched anyway. But for entirely different reasons. People aren't looking down at you anymore. They're looking up. And that's a whole different animal. But here's the thing about being seen. Once you've shown people who you really are, that toothpaste isn't going back in the tube, my darling. They know now. They've clocked the strength, the wisdom, the resilience. They've felt the gravitational pull of your presence. And now they're invested. They're watching. They want to see what you do next. You've built a new reality just by being honest about who you are. And there's no shrinking back to the small, invisible draft of yourself after you've shown people the full voltage of what you carry. Now let's keep it 100. This isn't a fairy tale. This isn't some Hollywood montage where everything magically clicks into place. You're still you, still dealing with the same chaos you've always dealt with. The only thing that's different is the way people see you now. And that rewrites everything. Because when people see you differently, they treat you differently. They bring you their problems, their questions, their fears. They look to you for answers. And you have to decide what to do with that. There's something else simmering underneath all this. Some people, the ones who knew the old model of you, the hidden version, they're struggling. They don't know how to relate to you anymore. They had a cozy, predictable dynamic with the person you used to perform as, and now that character's been retired. The person in front of them is someone they can't fully decode. They're trying to reconcile the quiet, tucked-away human they remember with the powerful, wise force you've become. And for a few of them, it's easier to resent your evolution than to update their own operating system. Some people don't want to see you level up because your growth puts a spotlight on their own stagnation. But other people, the ones actually paying attention, they're magnetized to you. They can't quite crack your code, and that's exactly what keeps them orbiting. You've become the most interesting puzzle in the room. They want to understand you. They want proximity, because being near you makes them feel like there's more texture to life than they'd previously imagined. Your presence alone is a challenge to every assumption they ever made about what's possible. You've become a translator, haven't you? A bridge between the way most people see the world and the way things actually operate beneath the surface. You're decoding something for them. You're proving there's a whole dimension underneath the obvious that they've been sleepwalking past. You're connecting threads that other people don't even know are there. And that's rare. That's a gift most people will never unwrap. Not everyone carries that caliber of awareness, that precision of perception, that depth of understanding. They say hindsight's 20/20, but the way your mind works, it's like you've got headlights pointing forward while everyone else is checking the rear view. You can feel where things are heading before they arrive. You sense currents and patterns that skip right past other people. You've got this ability to call outcomes that nobody else saw on the horizon. And when those outcomes land exactly as you called them, people stare at you with these cocktail of awe and confusion. How did you know? How could you have possibly seen that coming? And you can't really spell it out for them. Not in a way their wiring can fully absorb. It's like you've got access to a channel they don't even know is broadcasting. This is what they missed while you were hiding. They saw you being quiet. They saw you keeping to yourself. And they thought, oh, this one's got nothing going on. No insights. Just kind of existing, taking up space. They had absolutely no idea you were absorbing everything. Watching, cataloging, running simulations. They had no clue that underneath that still surface your mind was working triple shifts, processing data, forging connections, constructing an understanding of the world that would make their heads spin. They thought you were empty because you weren't broadcasting. They assumed you had nothing to bring to the table because you weren't putting anything on it. And now you've stopped holding back, and they're seeing the full inventory for the first time. It's a bit like you've been sitting on a treasure chest your whole life, walking around looking like you couldn't afford a bus ticket, and then one day the lid comes off and it's just, oh, I see what I missed. So what does this mean for you going forward? It means you've got a choice. Not between hidden and seen. That chapter's already written. You're seen now. No erasing that. The choice is what you do with this new visibility. Are you going to try to fold yourself back up, shrink again, apologize for being more than they bargained for? Or are you going to own it, stand in your power and let people see exactly who you are? The brilliant, the complicated, the messy, the wise, every last cracked and glowing piece of it. Because here's the punchline, and it's a good one. You've already done the hardest part. You already survived the thing that was supposed to flatten you. You already walked through the dark and came out breathing on the other side. You already proved to yourself and to every doubter with a front row seat that you are not what they assumed. The hard part is done, and what's left is the part where you get to choose who you become next. That's the thrilling part. Every single person walking this earth is carrying something they haven't shared. Every single one of them has a side they're hiding, a chapter they haven't read out loud. You already let yours be seen. You already let your story breathe. That takes more guts than most people will summon in a lifetime. And now you've done it once, which means you know the trick. The fear of being seen is always worse than the seeing itself. You're not the same person who started this. You're not the same ghost who was haunting the edges, hoping nobody would look too close. You are someone who walked through the fire and came out as something the fire itself would respect. Stronger, but also more real, more raw. You've peeled off the layers of performance and protection that used to be your armor. And what's underneath is something genuine, something true. Something people can actually grab onto. People are starving for that, you know. They want to be around someone who's real. They're exhausted by the masks, the performances, the endless, suffocating pretending. They've been doing it their whole lives, and it's draining them dry. And then they bump into you, and you're just being exactly who you are. No script, no costume. And it's like fresh air after being locked in a room they forgot had windows. Look, you're going to get reactions. You already are. Some of those will be standing ovations. Some will be people backing slowly toward the exit. Some people are going to celebrate you. Some are going to feel threatened because your light is exposing rooms they'd rather keep dim. That's just the cost of admission when you stop hiding. When you step into your power, you automatically step into the crosshairs. People will have opinions. People will project their own fears and insecurities onto you like you're a movie screen. But here's the thing you've got to tattoo on the inside of your eyelids. Their opinions about you are not your responsibility. Their reactions are their luggage, not yours. You've spent enough of your life carrying other people's perceptions around like they were gospel. You're done with that. The only opinion of you that needs to keep you up at night is your own. And from where I'm standing, that opinion should be spectacular.